Rain tapped softly against the wide glass windows of the penthouse, the kind of gentle drizzle that made the city lights shimmer like a dream. Inside, the house was quiet, too quiet. Elena wiped her damp hands on her apron, glancing at the clock on the wall. Nearly midnight. Another long day had passed. She had just finished cleaning the kitchen after the Thompsons' dinner party. The laughter and chatter from their guests had already faded, replaced by the ticking of the grandfather clock. Her back ached, but it was her heart that felt heavier. Today was her birthday. No one in the house knew, of course. Why would they? She was just the nanny, the one who kept their daughter, Lily, happy in the house spotless. Still, a tiny part of her had hoped that someone, even little Lily, might remember. Elena reached into her small handbag and pulled out a folded card, handmade, with uneven edges. She had written it herself, not for anyone else, but for the child she looked after. Happy 6th birthday, my sweet Lily, the card read in neat, careful handwriting. She had planned to give it to the little girl earlier that day, but the chaos of the party had swallowed the moment. She sighed and placed the card on the marble table near the dining room, hoping Lily might find it in the morning. Then she quietly gathered her things, ready to leave. Just as she reached for her coat, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. Mr. Alexander Thompson, the CEO himself, appeared, still in his crisp suit, tie loosened, a glass of whiskey in hand. His usual stern expression softened slightly when he saw her. "You're still here?" he asked, his deep voice carrying both authority and exhaustion. "Yes, sir," Elena replied, lowering her gaze. "I was just leaving." He nodded absently, then noticed the card on the table. "What's this?" Elena froze, unsure whether to explain. But before she could answer, he picked it up and opened it. His eyes scanned the simple words inside, the warmth, the care, the sincerity that money could never buy. Something shifted in his expression. In that small, handmade birthday card meant for a child, the lonely CEO found something he hadn't felt in years, human kindness. And Elena's quiet life was about to change forever. Elena's shoes clicked softly against the wet pavement as she hurried through the drizzle toward the bus stop. The city lights blurred through her tears, though she couldn't quite explain why she was crying. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe loneliness, or maybe it was the quiet ache of being invisible in a world that only noticed her when something went wrong. She hadn't meant to leave the card behind. It was a small thing, just paper and ink, but it carried her heart. She had written it for Lily, the little girl who had come to mean more to her than anyone else. Elena had wanted the child to know she was loved, even if her father was too busy to show it. Back in the penthouse, Alexander Thompson sat at the dining table, the card still in his hand. The words were simple, yet something about them stirred a part of him he had long buried. "You are loved, no matter what." He couldn't remember the last time someone had said those words to him, or to Lily. His phone lay beside his drink. Before he could stop himself, he picked it up and dialed the nanny's number from the staff contact list. The line rang once, twice, before her soft, uncertain voice answered. "Hello, Miss Elena, it's Alexander." She froze in place, clutching the phone tightly. "Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry if I left anything unfinished. I'll come back right now if—" "No," he interrupted, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. "That's not why I called." There was silence. Even the rain seemed to pause. "I found the card," he continued quietly. "It was beautiful. Lily should see it in the morning. Thank you for making it for her." "Oh," Elena whispered, caught between embarrassment and relief. "I didn't mean to leave it there, sir. I just wanted her to know she's special." "She is," he said, his tone low and thoughtful. "And you've reminded me of that." For a moment, neither spoke. The distance between the lonely CEO and his humble nanny felt smaller than it ever had before. When he finally ended the call, Alexander sat in silence, staring at the little handmade card. He didn't know it yet, but that single phone call was the beginning of everything he had been missing. Sunlight spilled through the tall windows of the Thompson penthouse, bathing the living room in soft gold. For the first time in years, the house wasn't silent. Laughter, bright, childish laughter, echoed from the hallway. Elena stopped in her tracks when she stepped inside. Her eyes widened. The dining area, usually pristine and cold, had been transformed. Colorful balloons floated near the ceiling, ribbons hung from the chandelier, and a giant pink cake sat proudly on the table, its frosting sparkling under the light. Standing beside it all, still in his white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, was Alexander Thompson. The same man who, just yesterday, barely remembered his daughter's birthday. Lily ran to Elena, her curls bouncing. "Nanny, Daddy made breakfast, and he said we're having a real party today." Elena blinked, unsure if she'd heard correctly. A real party? Alexander looked up then, meeting her gaze. There was no trace of the cold, distant CEO, only a man trying to remember how to be a father. "I thought we could celebrate properly," he said, his tone softer than she'd ever heard. "Lily deserves more than a cake and a few candles." Elena smiled, still uncertain. "She'll love it, sir." "She already does." He walked over, holding something behind his back. "Actually," he said, "I think you're part of the reason she's smiling." Before she could respond, he pulled out the small card she'd made. It had been placed in a little glass frame, delicate, polished, and sitting now in the center of the table. "I wanted to keep it here," Alexander explained, "so Lily can always see the words you wrote." Emotion caught in Elena's throat. "You didn't have to. I wanted to," he interrupted gently. "You reminded me that love doesn't need grand gestures. Just presence." Lily tugged at her father's hand. "Daddy, can Nanny sit with us?" Alexander smiled, nodding. "Of course she can. She's part of this family too." For a moment, Elena couldn't move. Her heart swelled at the warmth in his voice, the kind of warmth she'd never expected from him. And as she sat beside Lily and Alexander, surrounded by laughter and sunlight, she realized something had changed forever. The lonely mansion finally felt like a home. Days turned into weeks, and something subtle yet unmistakable began to shift within the Thompson penthouse. Where there had once been silence, now there was music, Lily's laughter echoing down the marble halls, the clatter of breakfast dishes shared around the same table, and sometimes, the sound of Elena humming softly while tidying up. Alexander noticed it all. He began leaving work earlier, first by an hour, then 2. His assistants whispered in confusion. The man who used to live for his boardroom now rushed home for bedtime stories. The empire he'd built could wait, because for the first time in years, there was someone, worth coming home to. One evening, Lily had fallen asleep early, her tiny hand still clutching her favorite stuffed bunny. The house was quiet again, but this time, it wasn't lonely. Alexander found Elena in the kitchen, finishing the dishes. Her hair was pulled into a loose bun, a few strands framing her face, and the sleeves of her sweater were rolled up to her elbows. "You don't have to do that," he said softly, leaning against the counter. She smiled without looking up. "It's my job, Mr. Thompson." He hesitated before replying. "Maybe, but you've done far more than your job." That made her pause. Slowly, she set the dish towel down and turned to face him. There was something in his eyes she hadn't seen before, warmth, gratitude, and something deeper. "You've changed this house, Elena," he said quietly. Lily smiles again. "She talks. She laughs. She sleeps without nightmares. That's because of you." Her throat tightened. "She just needed love, sir. Every child does." He nodded, stepping closer. "And what about you?" She blinked, startled. "Me? You give so much love to everyone else," he said, his voice low, "but has anyone ever given it back to you?" The air between them grew still. She wanted to answer, but no words came. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. He smiled faintly, almost sadly. "You deserve more than being invisible in someone else's story." In that moment, something fragile and beautiful bloomed between them, a connection neither dared name. Outside, the city lights flickered against the glass, and for the first time in a long time, both of them felt truly seen.